Welcome back to Sunday Supplement. Let's focus on the title race. Manchester City go to Bournemouth on Tuesday, of course. But before then, Arsenal are at home to Burnley on the Monday Night Football. The back page of the Sunday Mirror features an interview with Martin Zubamendi. Paint the town red, he says. Let's win and party like it's 2004. Jason, potentially decisive 2 days in this title race. It looks like it might go to the wire. As far as Arsenal are concerned, does it feel like a test of nerve over verve now?
Oh, obviously, yeah, absolutely. They've got these two games against Burnley at home and Palace away. They'll be watching, obviously, to see if Man City beat Bournemouth. I think it will go down to the last day. I suspect, though, that Arsenal will win very convincingly against Burnley. I think they'll probably get enough in terms of goal difference to even give them a bit of a cushion. Now, I think that West Ham game was the one. It was the one. You know, everyone did say that beforehand, and it proved to be the case. You know, get over the line with that West Ham game. And I was quite surprised how nervous they were in that game and how they were a bit unconvincing. I thought they'd got themselves back on track earlier than that, but it was a vital win. That I think that's done it. I think they will get over the line now. And obviously tomorrow night against Burnley, I think I could see them winning very, very convincingly. As I say, get a goal difference up to such an extent that it kind of makes it. You know, they don't even have to win on the last day. They could probably draw.
Jackie, have you seen a change in the atmosphere around the Emirates, particularly after that Fulham game and before that Atletico Madrid game, which we understand the fans are going to welcome the team bus again, which we hadn't really seen at the Emirates ever before, and it was absolutely incredible, the scenes before the Atletico Madrid game. It's almost like they're just dragging their team over the line now, aren't they?
Yeah, and the players need them to as well. I mean, they have been criticised before for not being necessarily as vocal as they could be in the past, Arsenal supporters. But I think it's so close now. It's so close, isn't it? And I don't want to be cynical. I promise you I don't. But all the way through the season, I've always felt that it's never going to be as straightforward as people think. Even when Arsenal had a convincing lead and were looking fantastic on the pitch, I've always just, maybe it's just because we've been around the block so many times over a few decades of whenever you think something is in the offing, someone throws a curveball in there. And literally everybody I hear saying, oh, this is going to be straightforward against Burnley. Is it? There's so much at stake. And also, there's crazy things that can happen in any football game. Red cards can happen. Somebody could stick a boot into the thigh of somebody just through a split-second mistimed challenge, and they're off, and that's it, and out for the next game too. And out for, could happen in the second minute of a game, or a key player could go down injured. I'm not here, I promise you, Arsenal fans, to make you nervous. All I'm saying is that when we look on paper at what we think will probably happen in the last couple of games in the Premier League, it rarely pans out that way. So I think it's far from done and dusted. I think huge credit to Arsenal for doing what they've done so far, for reaching the Champions League final, for being this positive, the supporters for being so positive. They probably will get over the line, but I absolutely do not think it's done and dusted. There's a long way to go.
Mark, Jackie says full credit to Arsenal. It's not a narrative that's been shared by a lot of people. In The Observer, Rory Smith talks about Arsenal don't charm everyone, but other coaches are in awe. I'll just read you a bit of this piece. The approach in which they've sought to end that agonising wait for a title, it's fair to say, has not won universal approval from those observers who might, with varying degrees of accuracy, regard themselves as neutrals. Among Arteta's peers, though, the response has been very different. And he quotes he refers to Daniel Farke and how impressed he was. He says he assessed Arsenal from the perspective of a coach and a manager, analysing them almost as a feat of engineering. And what he saw clearly, he regarded as a masterpiece. Have Arsenal got the credit, and has Arteta got the credit that maybe they've deserved?
No, not really. And I think we're all guilty of not giving them the credit. I mean, I think they're a hard watch, but I think we've got to take away the last 10 years. We've all, really praised the Man City teams of Guardiola and the Liverpool teams of Klopp. The last 10 years have been like fantasy football in terms of the way that the Premier League's been played. But you go back beyond that, Antonio Conte's Chelsea, Mourinho's Chelsea. You don't have to always have flair to win a title, and Arsenal haven't really got a lot of flair.
Helps
but
though, doesn't it?
It does help, and there are times you watch them thinking this is heavy going. But it's all about winning more points than your rival to win the league, and they're going to do that, I think. So yes, they deserve credit. I mean, again, the Arsene Wenger team was a great team to watch, but prior to that, Arsenal's kind of, DNA was George Graham Arsenal. 1-0 to the Arsenal, defend resolutely and score goals when you can. So let's not get too carried away. If they win the league, they deserve to win it. But I do think that the last day could be really eventful. Like when Jeremy Doku scored that equaliser at Everton, I just thought that goal could have a real significance because it just meant that Arsenal had to get 4 points from this point on. So I think they'll beat Burnley tomorrow. I disagree with Jackie, but I think they'll hammer Burnley, to be honest. I think it's a game that home advantage Emirates, they could score 5 or 6. But if they go behind against Palace at Selhurst Park on the final day, the Arsenal fans get really, really jittery, especially if City is scoring goals against Villa. So I think it could go down at the final day, and it could like be Celtic Hearts. It could be a very, very late decisive goal, but I do think it's going to go at the final day.
Just going back to that piece from Rory, he says use the word awe. When I talk to managers, it's not awe, it's admiration. They think they're a fantastically well-coached team. But there's always, when I talked to my parents, maybe it was, but a manager said to me, absolutely brilliantly coached team, fantastic, but, and there was a but, it's like, as Mark said, a hard watch.
If that was Sam Allardyce's team or Tony Pulis's, they'd be getting criticised. But because it's Mikel Arteta, it's different.
Do you not think there's an element of the fact they haven't won it for 22 years, though? Do you not have to cut them some slack? They've just got to do what they've got to do, because mentally, it's a much bigger challenge than Manchester City winning the title.
I think that's definitely what's happened, sorry, because he has tried to play more free-flowing football and it just didn't quite work. I think this season, as you say, Jackie, is all about just get over the line. Just find a way to get over the line. And then hopefully then you can build on that. Because I think if they do win it this year, we could see a period of dominance from Arsenal. I genuinely think that.
It's almost like the Champions League final is going to be a battle for football's soul, isn't it? It's going to be Arsenal against PSG. The PSG are a dream team to watch. They're fantastic in every department. They pass it around. They move brilliantly. They can score goals from all elements. You know, Kvaratskhelia is a brilliant player, and they've got Arsenal.
And one of the reasons neutral fans are quite critical of Arteta as well is his antics on the touchline. So for neutrals, I was watching an Arsenal game with someone the other day who was just shouting at the telly. He was just so annoyed by his antics that actually winds people up.
Time wasting, running the clock down, goalkeepers going down for treatment. All these things that Arsenal do, other teams do as well. Man City have been terrible for 10 years on the tactical fouls. But
just picking up on that, have you, in all the time that you've been covering football, and particularly in the Premier League, experienced as much noise and narrative around a club as you have at Arsenal this season?
No, I don't think so. I don't think we've ever gone to a title race whereby everyone's criticising the style of play, because, like I said, the last 10 years it's been dream football, and prior to that we didn't have that kind of comparison. You know, if Chelsea were in it under Conte, it wasn't like, well, it's not as good as Guardiola City. You know, even Leicester in 2016, it wasn't great to watch, but it was exhilarating because of what they were doing. But equally, it was built on a kind of a solid defence and counter-attacking football. So, yeah, Arsenal have been dominated by the narrative, but if they win the league, they won't care one little bit.
I think there's been 3 factors, hasn't there, really? I mean, I think, you know, somebody asked me this the other day, actually, who worked for Arsenal. I think the manager himself sometimes has alienated people, and it's been quite difficult to, you know, sort of warm to, let's be honest. I think the style of football has been an issue. This is going to get me in trouble. I think the fans sometimes can be a little bit insufferable as well. You know, I mean, even people saying if they win it this year, it's going to be the greatest Premier League triumph ever and all this sort of stuff. And well,
you're saying that?
Because they haven't won it for 20 years or whatever, and you know, I think Ian Wright said it would be the greatest if they win the... And there is an argument for that. If they win the Premier League and the Champions League, there's an argument for that. It's just
not waiting for Leicester, though.
But it's just... No, in terms of winning the Premier League and the Champions League in one season, having not won them for... There is absolutely, I'm not saying it's a wrong argument, it's just the kind of statements like that do rile people at times. I think those 3 factors have been at play for them, but they're not factors they can't get around. They're not they don't care if they win. If they win, they win. Then they deserve to win.
Would every fan base not be insufferable?
Yeah, look, if Arsenal fans aren't happy that they don't get enough credit for winning the league, well, I wouldn't worry about it. If you win the league, it doesn't matter what people think. You've won the league. So, you know, get on with it.
Just finally, Jason, on Arsenal, just picking up on what you said there about potentially being ominous for the rest if they were to get over the line this season, because there is a transitional feel about their challenges as well, isn't there? Could be a perfect storm for Arsenal in the next few years.
And I also feel, I definitely feel that they've built so well in the last few years under Arteta that the growth of the club, and this is why they should be admired, is, you know, yes, they've spent money, but they've spent within their means, and they've done it in a very sort of organic way, season by season. They've built upon it, second. And now if they win it, and the profile of the squad, the age of the squad, and we know the improvements that need to be made in that squad, they're obviously up front, and they'll do that hopefully in the summer. But so I feel once you get over the line with this team, I think we could see a period of dominance. I think they could win 2 or 3 titles in the next 5 years. I definitely think that with Arteta, and it could be quite an ominous sign for the rest of the Premier League.
They have the stability that their rivals just don't have. All the top clubs are without managers or changing.
I just don't see Arsenal's style of play being sustainable.
I think they'll evolve the style of play. I think once they get over the line this season, I think they'll become a more attacking team.
I think City will be better, Chelsea will be better under Alonso. I think Liverpool will be better. So I just think this is Arsenal's window. If they don't win it this year, they'll win it at some point. But I don't think there'll be a period of dominance.
Well, you think if they win it this year, that's kind of it. They'll fall back into the pack again.
I do. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I do.
OK.
Disagree.
Brilliant. Let's go from the title race to the battle to avoid the drop. The Mail on Sunday focuses on West Ham United's huge game at St James's Park this afternoon. Will Nuno finally trust Wilson to save Hammers? Jackie, this cannot be underestimated, can it, how big this afternoon is for West Ham United? They probably didn't think they'd get this opportunity with Tottenham Hotspur being 1-0 up against Leeds to give them that cushion, but then Leeds ended up equalising. In recent memory, given what's at stake, can you think of a more significant game for West Ham United and maybe a bigger game for Tottenham Hotspur, even though they're not playing?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely huge, isn't it? I mean, again, nothing's done and dusted. We try to look at tables and fixtures and try and work out what we think is going to happen. But actually, there's always curveballs that are going to be thrown in, and nerves as well. And the pressure, there's so much pressure, and it's still so tight at the bottom. I think under De Zerbi, clear improvement for Tottenham. And so we're thinking, Tottenham are going to pull away now. But they haven't really. There's still only a couple of points in it. And they were 1 point clear when Tudor was sacked, and now it's only 2 points, despite the clear improvement and the midfield experience that's been brought in by De Zerbi for Tottenham, I think is one of the things. And they are looking better. But that doesn't necessarily count for much. It's all about the points. And the point there in was it the Mail about Wilson? He is an expert finisher. He's not favoured by Nuno for whatever reason. There are lots of issues, of course, with injuries. But my goodness, he's played for England for a good reason. And of course, playing against Newcastle United would bring the best out of him. But whether he gets the opportunity, we'll see. But the relegation battle being absolutely fascinating, and I'm all here for it as a neutral.
He was out the door, wasn't he, as well? Wilson, yeah. I mean, they were getting rid of him. Incredible. But even when he came on against Arsenal the other day, I mean, he's obviously the one that was disallowed, but he provided such a greater threat to West Ham. I know the injuries and everything, but it does surprise me he hasn't played more. I think Castellanos has done quite well, but Pablo's not really worked for them. Obviously, 2 strikers that he brought in the January window. I'm surprised he's not turned to Wilson much more in terms of actually trying to score the goals that will keep them up.
What finish that was, by the way.
Absolutely.
Out, but
yeah,
what finish.
Fantastic.
There was another team who actually won the FA Cup yesterday, and that was, of course, Manchester City. The front page of the Sunday Telegraph says Semenyo's stunner, and it was, wasn't it? Jackie, it wasn't a classic. They are the FA Cup winners, but they just know how to get it done, don't they?
They do, and I think if we're all being completely honest about it, there wasn't a lot of magic in terms of this final. The fact that the two teams are so used to going to Wembley, that the two sets of fans are so used to going to Wembley, that the vast majority of the country don't support either side. So looking in, we all kind of wanted to hang our hat on something and look for some moment of fairy tale. And I think Antoine Semenyo did provide that in terms of the fantastic finish, the character that he is, even the way that he left Bournemouth, the class of that, the send-off that he got there, everything about him, the fact he used to play for Bath City in non-league just a few short years ago. We as English football fans can relate to somebody like that and want him to do well. So all the storylines were about, is Haaland going to score his first final goal and first goal at Wembley, etc. But actually, Semenyo stealing the headlines, that'll do for us in a game that, frankly, otherwise was pretty drab.
You say pretty drab. Jason, your piece in the Sunday Telegraph this morning, how Guardiola's tactical tweak won more silverware. And you start off by saying Guardiola got it wrong again. But learned quickly.
He's really strange in finals, isn't he? He always does something.
I mean, the famous one was the Champions League final against Chelsea,
when he didn't play defensive midfielder. When the team sheet came out yesterday and he had Marmoush in there instead of Cherki, I mean, I'm not a coach, but Chelsea can defend deep. Marmoush wants to run in behind. I'm looking at it thinking, Cherki destroyed them at Stamford Bridge. Why did he just start with him? But he always does something, doesn't he? And obviously he remedied it at half-time. And I thought Cherki had a really, really good game, actually. I know it was much more open in the second half. Chelsea played a lot better. Came at City a bit more space. But it does fascinate me how he always seems to do something in these finals that you don't expect him to do. And you look at it and think, why did you do that?
Well, he ended up winning it anyway. Martin Samuel in the Sunday Times, he was at Wembley as well. Look, he said about Pep Guardiola, because the big narrative going into this, is this going to be his last final? Is this going to be his last season? Just to quote from his piece, A camera caught him looking wistfully around, surrounded by the emptying arena and his jubilant players. Guardiola insists we are seeing things that are not there. He gave nothing away, but is adamant he will see out his contract, which expires at the end of next season, and is quite affronted that his word is so regularly doubted. Yet trusted lieutenants are slowly drifting away. He said it on Friday as well. Look, I've got one more year on my contract when he was questioned about it, but the noise is getting louder. It's been amplified. His news, his fitness coach is leaving, Lorenzo Buenaventura, at the end of the season. Bernardo Silva as well, so often known as his favourite and his current captain as well. How do you see the Pep Guardiola situation now?
I think the fitness coach is really telling, because he's been with Pep since Barcelona. He goes with him everywhere. And the fact that he's leaving suggests to me that a lot of people at City, it's not the goalkeeper coach is leaving, that people are now planning ahead. And you know, Pep has constantly said, I have a contract, but what he hasn't said is, I'm staying. It's all semantics. So by saying, I have a contract, guys, you know, I'm here, he always stops short of saying, stop asking me the question, I'll be here next season. He hasn't said that. And the more and more people you speak to at City, around the club, believe he's going. But nobody actually knows yet. I mean, maybe Khaldun, the chairman, Ferran Soriano, the CEO, will know, but maybe Pep doesn't know. I'm pretty sure he does. But the fact that so many people are leaving, the close people to him, and like I say, for me, the real kind of clincher was the fitness coach, because if he's leaving Pep, then Pep has never worked as a manager without him, and his backroom staff are a real team. So I do think this will be his last season. And the issue that City have got is that they would love to give him the send-off that he deserves. You know, 20 trophies he's won now with yesterday's FA Cup win. But if they win at Bournemouth on Tuesday to keep the title race alive, then next Sunday's game against Villa will matter. It's a game that they will have to...
They're having a parade on the Monday.
Yeah, but what they don't want is Pep's last game at the Etihad to be a situation where they don't win the league and everyone just drifts away. I think they want to give him the full send-off that Sir Alex Ferguson got at Man United, but I don't think Pep Guardiola would want the club to say on Wednesday, right guys, Pep's leaving, turn up on Sunday, going to be a big party. Hang on, there's a title on the line. He's not going to allow that. So I don't think it's a great ending. If it is the end, I think it's the end. I don't know what you think, Jason, but...
I think I asked a question a while ago to somebody who's quite close to him, and he just said, come back to me at the end of the season, which in itself says everything, doesn't it? I think to a degree it's in the balance. I think, obviously, this was about a month ago, so by now you'd hope to have a bit more idea as to what's happening. But I think it's certainly in the balance. As Mark says, Pep very clever in choosing his words very carefully. You know, he's not, and also he's done it in a very playful way, so he's not been too serious about it. And people keep saying, oh, he hasn't broken a contract, but that's not the point. The point is he's got an agreement with City that he can go whenever he wants to go. That's it. You know that, don't you?
Yeah.
He can go whenever he wants. They're not going to hold him to anything. So that's fine. It's not about breaking a contract. He's done everything he can at City. It's a question of whether or not he wants to carry on, whether he needs a break. And that's the way it's been portrayed to me. And it almost goes from almost like, not a day to day, but it does fluctuate quite a lot. So winning the FA Cup yesterday is a high, so maybe he thinks, oh, I'll stay. Or he might think, conversely, I've won another trophy. I think because the Premier League title race is still in the balance to a degree, he's probably just pushing it back and pushing it back and pushing it back. And it maybe just wakes up next Monday morning and says, that's it, I'm done.
Jackie, Mark mentioned Sir Alex Ferguson and the send-off he got, because he in advance said he was going to be leaving Manchester United back in 2013. There's an interesting piece from Paul Hurst in the Sunday Times who kind of compares the situations of Manchester City and Manchester United when both of these managers left and potentially are leaving. He talks about the United squad wasn't left in the greatest shape by Sir Alex Ferguson. However, he says if Guardiola does end up riding off in the sunset this summer, he is leaving one heck of a squad to his successor. Any new manager would be glad to have 27 players at Guardiola's disposal. And just picking up on that, you could flip it, couldn't you? Because I know Jason was questioning Mark by saying, well, do you think that it is going to be his final year? He's building another brilliant team, it feels like, particularly with the second half of this season. They've picked up 2 trophies. They're pushing Arsenal potentially to the last day of the season. Will there be that little whisper in his ear thinking, I could go again because I've got this team that could potentially win the league again?
Yeah, it is very different to when Sir Alex Ferguson left. I think he had a load of late 30s players, maybe 40-year-old on the bench in that final match as well, and just managed to squeak over the line. But regardless of that, I think if Pep Guardiola was going, and again, I think he is, and said that in the studio a few months ago, because everything pointed towards it. If he is to go, then everything is in place for that to happen. The fact that he is using sense of humour to bat away questions, the fact that he's saying, I've got another year on my contract to bat away questions. That is what you would do if you were leaving at the end of the season.
Yeah.
You're not going to say, oh, I'm not sure. You have to find a way to get through the press conferences, and joking with the British media is the way to do that. And so if he was staying, he'd just say, I don't know where all this has come from. Yes, I'm staying. OK, so-and-so starts leaving, but I'm replacing them and I'm working on that. I'm staying. What are you all talking about? He hasn't once said that. And so either there's an element he's not quite sure or he's leaving. And I absolutely think he is, because if I was him, trying to imagine it for a nanosecond, this is what I would do. Given that he's been there 10 years, given that he's such a legend, given that he was going for the FA Cup and the league, you want to take everybody's minds as far away as possible from him to focusing the players' minds on these 3 matches that really, really matter. So, absolutely, I think he'll go. And it's a shame if it doesn't quite happen to be the send-off he needs, but something has to give somewhere. Since when does anyone have the perfect send-off?
He's got to have told City by now, though, doesn't he, one way or the other?
That's a really good question, isn't it? Yeah.
He's got to get a replacement in.
I think what's been happening there, I think Mark probably knows this as well, is City have been lining up a replacement anyway. And I think that it seems to be pointing that way, doesn't it? I mean, I'm slightly. I don't know if it was sorted out that early, but it seems to be all aligning in that direction at the moment. But I'll be honest with you, slightly surprised at that. I've got to say, from what I know in terms of Maresca's coaching and the way he wants to play compared to Guardiola, and obviously he was at City with Guardiola, but he's not a Guardiola replacement. But maybe City are going in a slightly different direction. It does seem to be pointing in that direction. Even Alonso going to Chelsea, Alonso was on City's list as well. But I think Guardiola's probably well aware of the fact that Hugo Viana, director of football, will be getting his ducks in a row. That if it happens, then they'll be ready to go. But you're right. The danger is you do lose other candidates. You know, people will go elsewhere because obviously they don't know for sure that he's definitely going. But I think that conversation will be between Khaldoon and Pep. And I think whether it's taking place or not at the moment, I don't know.
Mark, we were talking about this just before we came on air, just on the FA Cup final in general, reminiscing about when we were younger, watching it from 8 o'clock in the morning right the way through until full time with cameras on the coach, etc. The Sunday Telegraph, as Oliver Brown's piece, Chelsea stopgap in a tracksuit lowers the tone in loveless final. This is a year on from when we were talking about the magic being back in the FA Cup, when Crystal Palace won their first trophy in their history. Are we back to talking about, well, it's lost its lustre again?
You know, it felt like that a little bit yesterday. I was walking at Wembley Way about 1 o'clock and it was really quiet. And it's an FA Cup final, and usually it would be colourful, it'd be noisy. I mean, the weather wasn't great as well.
They were watching the Scottish football.
Well, maybe, yeah.
At the time.
But obviously, you've got two sets of fans who are so used to going to Wembley, they're so used to winning trophies that it was almost like we'll turn up at 5-3 and we'll be fine. Because they played Abide with me the cup final here at 10-3, and the ground was half empty. And that wouldn't have happened in years gone by. But maybe we're kind of reflecting on a lost generation. I don't know. But the Callum McFarlane thing, I think it's a little bit harsh to pull him up for wearing a tracksuit, because he's the interim manager. Had he wore a suit, it would have been like, who do you think you are wearing a suit? You've not worn a suit yet. Pep Guardiola's one for me. You know, we talk about the things that Pep Guardiola's changed in English football. He's certainly changed what managers were, because prior to Pep's arrival, they'd be quite smart. It'd either be Tony Pulis in the club shop, as they used to say, or a suit. Nobody wears a suit anymore, because Pep's kind of just allowed everybody to dress down. We dress down at games as well. Nobody wears a suit anymore at games. So there's just a change in way things are going. But it did look a little bit like just a normal game yesterday. You know, managers just not really dressing for the occasion.
Just in a couple of words then, it is FA Cup final day, suit or tracksuit?
Suit, definitely.
But not a white suit.
Well, that's the whole other Sunday supplement. Jason?
I think you should take the team out in a suit, but you can also change after. But you shouldn't wear a tracksuit, no.
Yeah. And
wear a suit. You know, it's a cup final.
Wear a suit. You two were there yesterday, weren't you?
Yeah.
And you were dressed.
I was not dressed in a suit.
Dressed like that.
Lovely.
I have got changed.
Lovely.